was right about Mephisto too. Was everything we saw in WandaVision actually Wanda's inner demon messing with her mind? I'm Erik Voss, and this is The Deep Dive, a new channel on New Rockstars Digital Network. As I continue to make videos for the main New Rockstars channel every week, I will be here on The Deep Dive channel digging even deeper into the titles that I love. And in this deep dive, I will revisit Marvel Studios' WandaVision, and how, now that we know really the big picture of WandaVision, we can really gaze past that week-by-week sleuthing, and new, even creepier details reveal how all 9 episodes of the series represent a plunge into darkness as Wanda's lifelong inner demon consumes her, resulting in what I think is the most unnerving horror title the MCU has made to date. WandaVision's spin-off, Agatha Coven of Chaos, is coming, so let us re-examine WandaVision episode by episode, look beyond the Easter eggs. You can rewatch the New Rockstars Easter egg breakdowns that I did for those, and instead just dive deep into how all of this is actually just a story about a cursed witch being dragged through hell. By whom or by what? The answer may surprise you. And that curse takes the form of a television set, one illusion within another. And this will be the portal through which we will deep dive today, all the way down to the roots. Episode 1, filmed before a live studio audience. Right away, I spotted something new here. In the Marvel Studios title card, Wanda was moved from her typical Phase 3 spot of being first in the letters after the Bifrost Bridge, when she marched out of those doors in Age of Ultron, and now was moved to this isolated island in the hole of the R, the moment she nearly killed Thanos in Endgame. Because as we see Wanda in the series, when she is isolated on an island is when she is most dangerous. The shifting of reality of the MCU is illustrated with the fanfare shifting to black and white, 4:3 aspect ratio, and more condensed audio, all of these reflecting the way we would see sitcoms on an old school television set. Now, these opening titles are based on the Dick Van Dyke Show opening, the music and lyrics composed by the Lopez's, directly based on the melody of the Dick Van Dyke theme.
Just moved to town.
The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Dick Van Dyke himself actually consulted on this series. They nod to Dick Van Dyke's gag of tripping over the footstool, with WandaVision phase shifting through the chair so they don't trip over it. Now, if you think about it practically, they must have VFX painted in that chair. And you can tell in the slightly closer shot of them dancing together, the sofa to their left and the lamp to their right means that they are dancing exactly where that chair would be. Normally that chair is part of the set, it's just now here pulled out way from where it should be. So who moved it out? Who tried to trip Vision? Poltergeist! Now, we later learn that this first episode setup comes from Wanda's earliest memories when she watched the Dick Van Dyke Show, specifically the season 2 episode It May Look Like a Walnut, in which Rob watches a scary sci-fi TV program about aliens and glowing walnuts and wakes up in a Twilight Zone scenario in which it has become real. This directly inspired Wanda's nightmare reality, where she manifests her reality based on what she saw on TV. For Dick, it was nuts. For Wanda, it was Dick. You'll notice their license plate reads 0102, as Wanda and Vision were the first and second focal stars of the sitcom reality. Now, when everyone was combing WandaVision for Easter eggs in 2021, there was a lot of wasted speculation that every number and name was a reference to some comic book thing. But now we can free ourselves from that in the Deep Dive's mission to properly define what an Easter egg actually is. In these 9 episodes, the real Easter eggs are the little creepy ways the medium of television sitcoms are used to gaslight Wanda. WandaVision as a series, therefore, is better understood as a Truman Show-esque deconstruction of the American sitcom and how grotesque those stereotypes are, and not really a simple A to B adaptation of comic mythology like many other MCU titles tend to be. In this first scene, Wanda nearly concusses Vision.
My husband and his indestructible head.
An ironic line, considering when we had last seen these two characters, Wanda destroyed Vision's head. Notice here, she magically fuses the pieces back together the way Thanos used the Time Stone to fuse Vision's Mind Stone back together just so he could kill him again. Wanda in the series will resurrect her love Vision just so she can kill him again. Vision's newspaper has an ad on the back for Westview appliances. Every American home can benefit from the newest, most modern television. Similarly, the art above the calendar reads, all this little girl wants is a color television, because television is the gateway medium for Wanda's illusion. Everywhere there are signs telling Wanda to escape deeper and deeper into television. There's also a lobster among the food at the bottom of the newspaper, also a lobster on the wall in the commercial of this episode. This is what Wanda will try to cook for dinner later, and a sacrificial animal that will end up on her door. By the way, the front page of this newspaper reads, little baby Jean's first word tickles Mother Sue, because in addition to the hypnotic trance of television, the other subliminal message Wanda is bombarded with is, have some kids. Agnes arrives and gives Wanda a houseplant. Now, you can't tell from the black and white here, but later in episode 7, we learn that the ribbon on this plant is purple, Agatha's color. This plant actually showed up in the poster for this episode, and I'm pretty sure that is Dumbcane Dieffenbachia, which, surprise, surprise, is poisonous to dogs. Agnes, which takes the first and last syllable of Agatha Harkness, wears a cameo brooch showing the three graces of Greek mythology, aka the Charities, Euphrosyne, Aglaia, and Talia, in whom beauty was defined. Agatha took this from her witch mother Evanora, suggesting this coven's eternal beauty might be an evil dating back to ancient times. After bombarding Wanda with questions, they finally greet.
I'm Wanda.
Wanda. Charmed.
I love the editing and the performances here. Just the pause after the word charmed. Matt Shackman cutting back to Wanda as she realizes, why didn't this woman start by asking my name? And of course, charmed, a word with deeper meaning between these two witches casting spells on each other. Agnes brings up her husband, Ralph.
The only way Ralph would remember our anniversary is if there was a beer named June 2nd.
June 2nd, the day the Salem witch trials began in 1692, which we know from episode 8 Agatha and her coven were associated with. And of course, Ralph is not her husband, but actor Ralph Boner, yet still probably a dude who likes brewskis. But then we get a commercial for the Toastmate 2000 from Stark Industries. The dial makes the sound of the Iron Man repulsor warm up, and it blinks faster and faster. The same sounds and blinking red light of the Stark warhead that destroyed Wanda and Pietro's home. Wanda pours wine from a bottle with the label Maison du Mépris, which translates to House of Misery. For in reality, this house is actually on an empty plot of land that is filled with grief. Now, Elizabeth Olsen I don't think is given enough credit for the subtle ways she signals that unraveling in the early episodes. Like here when Miss Hart asks,
"And why don't you have children yet?"
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from,
Yes, we moved from.
yeah, specifically, it seems to be the word children that sets Wanda off here. Wanda hasn't yet conjured children in the season, but that look of loss on her face suggests that the Scarlet Witch is detaching from the present and connecting with her future self, when the hunt for her children is really all that matters. The Darkhold is what declares becoming the Scarlet Witch is her destiny, and Wanda, as a Nexus being, is feeling all of the grief of her life collapsing on her at once. Mr. Hart presses,
Honestly, why did you come here? Why? Damn it, why? Why did you...
Something I just noticed about Mr. Hart choking, he doesn't have any food in his mouth at first, but when we cut back to him, suddenly his fork is in his hand and he looks like he's taking a bite of something. But he doesn't actually have time between the lines to put any food in his mouth. So this works both as an old sitcom editing gaffe, but like every gaffe in the show, it's really a glitch in Wanda's matrix. Her demonic grief is what intervened to choke Mr. Hart. So as he chokes, this episode finally breaks out of the multicam setup to enter some creepy close-ups of Mrs. Hart begging, "Stop it," as her eyes sob, but her mouth smiles. This is the real Westview woman underneath, actually begging Wanda to cease this reality spell.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Deborah Jo Rupp's emotional breakdown is chilling, evoking Georgina's breakdown in Jordan Peele's Get Out.
No.
So Vision phase shifts into the throat to remove the food, and Mrs. Hart, like it's nothing, just resumes eating, but the night ends abruptly, and Wanda pops some rings on their fingers with a shaky jump cut like we see in Bewitched. This episode ends with a kiss and a hexagonal frame, a recurring shape in WandaVision, as we later learn this hex is actually the shape of a hexagon around Westview. But here, I only now notice that Vision ends the episode himself with a TV remote. They are using the medium of television to transition forward. I had honestly forgotten how gorgeous the closing credits were on the series, red, blue, green TV pixels forming the town of Westview, and this haunting female scream over it all. This echoes the music from Rosemary's Baby, the moment when Rosemary realizes her son is a spawn of Satan. This is why when some people were underwhelmed by WandaVision episode 1, I was like, oh, no. This is a straight up horror and one of the most unnerving things we've ever seen in the MCU. But to further examine grief's active stranglehold on Wanda, we must change the channel to episode 2. Don't touch that dial. So Wanda's previously on WandaVision gets progressively more annoyed episode by episode.
Previously on WandaVision. 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 Previously on WandaVision.
Wanda and Vision now find themselves in a swinging 60s setup with this animated intro inspired directly from the Bewitched intro. And you'll notice it starts with 6 stars lighting up, another hexagonal formation reflecting Wanda's overall hex, just like the hexagon wipe at the end of this episode. Wanda and Vision's Magic Act cabinet has a design of Vision's Mind Stone, which empowered Wanda with a cosmic radiation that enhanced her powers. Now, I don't know if it's just me being creeped out by this, but the wall of Wanda's dining room is the Sokovian Mountain Hydra Lab in the Alps, where Wanda was experimented on. You know, where you got tortured as your wallpaper? And the fact that it's just in plain sight here, looking a lot like the Overview Hotel from The Shining, or how the demon face would just appear on the household surfaces in The Exorcist. Ugh, heebie-jeebies left and right. Now, Wanda realizes that the creepy bumps that they've been hearing through the night were caused by this crashed toy helicopter. It's red and yellow and in Technicolor. A S.W.O.R.D logo on the front. Why in color? Because for Wanda, this is an invasive presence to her hex. We later learn that this is a drone that Wanda's hex turned into a toy, reminding us of that creepy Twilight Zone episode, It's a Good Life, where a boy controls everything in a small town and turns a very bad man into a jack-in-the-box. Agnes shows up with her pet rabbit.
Senor Scratchy just loves the stage. He played baby Jesus in last year's Christmas pageant.
Ah, yes, Senor Scratchy. But Matt Shackman did confirm that the original plan for Senor Scratchy was to reveal him as Agatha's familiar, and for Senor Scratchy to transform back into his scratchy demonic form, guarding the Darkhold and chase those boys around Agatha's dungeon. Truly a demon in disguise. So Agnes, who you'll notice always wears her brooch despite her otherwise changing wardrobe, she tells Wanda to suck up to Dottie.
Or maybe I could just be myself, more or less.
Yeah, just that read from Catherine Hahn. Agatha is clearly manipulating Wanda within the sex, and she's super threatened by the idea of Wanda ever breaking character, being true to herself. Let's actually conceive this as a flow chart of control, because I think even coming out of WandaVision, a lot of us didn't fully understand what was going on in any given moment. Wanda is clearly controlling Westview, but not controlling it fully and not always controlling it consciously. Wanda is truly being manipulated by 2 forces above her, Agatha, but also Wanda's own grief. So based on that, it logically follows that Agatha must have a secret connection to that grief. Like at the very least knows it exists, and perhaps even knows it intimately and how it works. Using the metaphor from this episode of The Magic Act, Agatha is the audience plant, the random woman in the crowd who's actually a lovely assistant on the payroll. All the world's a stage. Which brings us to...
The devil's in the details, Bev.
That's not the only place he is.
Yeah, I and the whole internet lost our minds at this. And yeah, while it wasn't intended as a literal Mephisto setup, it's still worth mentioning it as an example of Agatha's gift and misdirection. She's making Wanda more afraid of Dottie than she is of Agatha, which is interesting because Emma Caulfield Ford is set to return as Dottie / Sarah Proctor in Coven of Chaos. We get more baby-making propaganda.
All of this is for the children.
For the children.
So if we do accept that Westview is Wanda's grief gaslighting her with the help of Agatha, the end goal to make her produce children, then yeah, this truly is a Rosemary's Baby plot. And again, the WandaVision 9 episodes don't say that these babies are from Mephisto, but broadly, if any cosmic force whispers in your ear, make babies so that you can, lose them and then turn the multiverse into madness. Yeah, that's arguably worse than their dad being the devil. Now the radio plays the Beach Boys' Help Me Rhonda, but Jimmy Woo's Wanda makes it sound like it's saying Help Me Wanda.
Who is that?
Get her out of my heart. As Westview wants Wanda and her curse out of their town. Jimmy asks,
Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda?
Yeah, even Jimmy himself suggests that this is not fully Wanda's doing. They actually pull off a bit of TV editing magic here that I didn't really clock the first time around.
Allow me.
What?
Whoops! You weren't supposed to see how we did that trick.
That was my grandmother's piano.
Yeah, how did they do that within the shot? They go from Paul Bettany holding a clearly 3-dimensional but probably lightweight prop piano, and when Wanda first grabs it, it's still 3-dimensional because you can see the gap between the wooden leg and the body of the piano with Wanda's hip on the other side, and then as she lifts it, no visible edit there, but Wanda carries it away and turns and it's clearly a flat board now. So they must have masked a cut somewhere, probably on the motion of Wanda lifting it, maybe they use VFX, but the point is, this is not a Bewitched style glitchy jump like the other moments were. It's just smooth. Too smooth. And the fact that we don't know where the cut was, yeah, it kind of feels like a magic act that worked too well. Wanda and Vision return home.
And it was all
For the children.
And here Wanda stands up to realize she has a sudden baby bump, an expedited pregnancy from their mingling at the beginning of the episode, or was it? Because notice when they first sat down, what was looming in the foreground? The TV set, with its antennae aggressively poking up through Wanda's rear. Okay, I'm not saying the TV Wanda, but you know, in a screwed over sense, yeah, that TV is totally Wanda. And they see the beekeeper with the S.W.O.R.D logo on the back of the suit rising from the sewer, and Wanda simply says no and rewinds back to their previous sweet moment. And we later learn that this beekeeper was just S.W.O.R.D agent Franklin in a protective suit who got warped into a beekeeper by Wanda's hex. But why bees and beekeeping? Is this all connected to the honeycomb hex formation? No, really, I just think this is an example of something that as a horror fan, I refer to as unexplained arbitrary horror. The best example of this is Stanley Kubrick putting that dog costume guy in The Shining. Now, yes, if you read Stephen King's Shining novel, you know this was a reference to the hotel owner Horace Derwent, who would make a guy named Roger dress up as a dog and do some weird, humiliating shit. But it was still weird for Kubrick to put in the movie, because famously, he did not care that much about King's plot points, about the ghosts that populated the hotel, and this dogman moment in The Shining is presented completely out of context and is never explained in the runtime of the movie. That is how I choose to see the beekeeper. It's Shelley Duvall seeing the dog costume blowjob. It's a true what the f. But rather than being frightened, Wanda takes control of the situation and live edits the scene back to where she was in control and turns everything into Technicolor, Dorothy turning her Kansas into Oz. And as a result of this transition, we learn the whole time Wanda is wearing a garishly red outfit, which is probably what Agnes was referring to earlier.
Can I give you a bit of friendly advice?
Is it about the way I'm dressed?
Yes, but it's too late for that.
The bloodstains that Wanda kept seeing throughout this episode had stained herself head to toe. On to episode 3, now in color. A 70s themed episode. Its opening inspired by the Brady Bunch. Vision quotes Shakespeare.
All the world's a stage, all the men and women merely players.
He's referring to the famous 7 Ages of Man monologue from As You Like It, which is an extended metaphor comparing the life of a person to a theatrical performance, paralleling the central concept of WandaVision, in which their current lives are really a performative, scripted routine in front of an audience. Vision practices diaper changing on a Kitty Carryall doll. This is from Brady Bunch Season 1, Episode 7, Kitty Carryall is Missing, where Cindy Brady loses her doll and accuses Bobby of taking it until they realize it was a dog, Tiger. Which is a bit of foreshadowing for Wanda, who will spend more time seeking her sons who are lost than actually being with them. Then this terrifying moment.
I think something's wrong here, Wanda. Yes, I know what you mean. The truth is, we are in uncharted waters.
I hate this, but I also love it for several reasons. Like Vision's staggered movement on the other side of the edit, it's not a clean edit. When we cut back a few seconds, his body contorts to a few different poses before he resumes talking. It's just hasty and really abrupt. But also, I did not notice this until now, but right before Vision says something's wrong here, Wanda, his eyes dart to the side, and in one single frame, he totally makes direct eye contact with us. He is seen through the reality, and that, not the questioning, is what triggers the edit. Also, he says the phrase uncharted waters, which sets up Vision's self-metaphor of the ship of Theseus. Vision considers himself a vessel made up of repurposed parts, and right now, that vessel is way off the map. Now, closed captioning reveals exactly what Agnes whispers to Herb.
Remarkable day we're having. No? Did you lose power too?
Yeah, Agnes ends by telling Herb that's fine, as if Herb's concern was Wanda's rapid pregnancy, but Agnes knows that Wanda getting pregnant is totally fine. That's part of the plan. What's not part of the plan is Monica/Geraldine.
She's new to town, brand new.
There's no family, no husband, no home.
She came here because we're all...
She came here because we're all what? What are you trying to tell me?
She came here because we're all...
Stop it!
Yeah, Herb was probably about to say because we're all trapped in Wanda's hex. But Agnes/Agatha needs this hex to continue because again, she has a secret connection to Wanda's grief, unbeknownst to Wanda. Wanda experiences some euphoric recollection.
I'm the twin. I had a brother. His name was Pietro.
Yeah, and I love how Wanda's Sokovian accent returns for Pietro. Now, Wanda's Sokovian lullaby isn't translated in English subtitles, but if you were to watch this episode with Brazilian Portuguese subtitles, you can actually get the real lyrics of this song. And we actually continue with episode 4, We Interrupt This Program, which opens with this thrilling experience of Monica right after the blip. Now, this is shot in a panicked long take of doctors and patients rematerializing. A hospital, if you think about it, being one of the craziest places this must have played out. One visitor reappears beside a woman in a bed who must have no idea who he is. Monica runs into a guy who reappears right in front of her, but if you were to rewind back to the top of the take, that stunt guy was already standing there at the beginning of the shot. So through Monica Rambeau, this episode follows the horror movie beat of outside law enforcement investigating the threat, which for Monica plays out like a cop in a cult film, like 1973's Wicker Man. Cult brainwashing, folks, no joke. Actually, Elizabeth Olsen's breakout role was in 2011's Martha Marcy May Marlene. I love that film. She played a cult escapee who struggled to shake her paranoia, and she might have been right to stay paranoid. And S.W.O.R.D HQ video screens show WHIH reports about the blip ending, and one Chiron reads, the Pope to speak at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in front of the world. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time would be midnight in the Vatican City. Never mind that. Monica gets sucked in, so they gotta bring in Darcy Lewis and other academics. Darcy scans the radiation coming from Westview.
A colossal amount of CMBR. Cosmic microwave background radiation.
CMBR is the oldest electromagnetic radiation in the universe, dating back to the Big Bang. It's actually the same type of radiation that creates TV static, thus the staticky border of this hex. And that Big Bang connection, likely due to Wanda's powers being enhanced by an Infinity Stone, the Mind Stone. But Darcy finds among this radiation noise video and audio wavelengths, which recalls the movie Contact, in which that initial alien signal actually echoed back to Earth the signal that contained the TV broadcast of the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. They ID the Harts as Todd and Sharon Davis, Herb as John Collins. All these names are of art directors who work on the show. Also notice that Agnes is on the board, but no New Jersey ID was found for her, as she wasn't originally a Westview, New Jersey resident. So this episode uses Darcy and Jimmy Woo as audience surrogates. Jimmy's dry erase board includes the kind of questions that YouTubers like me had for this series, including scroll speculation.
What are we looking at here? Is it an alternate reality, time travel, some cockamamie social experiment?
But I love it. By doing this, WandaVision supplies the viewer with a reflection of ourselves as we watch the horror go down on the other side of a glowing screen too. We actually watch back the episode 2 moment from Darcy's point of view.
Wanda, can you hear me? I'm here to help.
Pop quiz, Wanda. How does a housewife get a flood stain out of white linen?
So to Darcy, this was the same abrupt jump cut that Vision experiences in episode 3. Dottie even looks like she got a hair and makeup touch up and a lighting adjustment between the takes. We also revisit the beekeeper moment from Agent Franklin's point of view, and as he enters Westview from the sewer, it's initially in color, but notice in the background, Wanda and Vision are in black and white there. So it's not until Franklin makes eye contact with Wanda does the whole town shift into monochrome from his point of view. It's not that the town is objectively black and white, it's just black and white in the minds of the perceivers. Now, when Vision comes back in to check in on Wanda, even in the background behind her, Vision is not red here. He is his gray corpse form out of focus in the background, which creeps me out. It's not just how Wanda sees him, it's how he objectively is. This shot is for us. Now, corpse Vision with his dead, lifeless eyes, no pupils, definitely one of the scariest shots I've ever seen in the MCU. Who would have thought? A dead synthezoid. The MCU often doesn't show open wounds like this, but because he is a robot, they do. You can see where Thanos' thick fingers caved in that forehead. And the fact that he asks Wanda what's wrong makes him a kind of ghost unaware of the fact that he's dead, like that kid in The Sixth Sense who just had his head shot off by a gun. And now we are wondering, how often has Wanda been looking at him and actually seeing this and just hiding her expression? I just love how this episode ends with Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child and another seat in front of the TV. The cursed technology that is causing all this. But notice, Wanda's eye line is on the TV screen, but Vision, a guy who has just been looked at like he's a ghost, which he is, he looks above the TV directly at us. And so we change the channel to episode 5 on a very special episode. Here, things increasingly unravel into meta madness, as Lizzie Olsen now plays a mother to twins on an 80s sitcom set, the era where her twin sisters Mary-Kate and Ashley got their start as twin babies working on Full House. Agnes drops in as the Full House Kimmy Gibbler-style neighbor, but Vision's mistrust is not part of the script.
Actually, you know what? You would just maybe we better not.
Do you want me to take that again?
I'm sorry?
You want me to hold the babies? Should we just take it from the top?
I love it. The moment Vision starts talking here, Catherine Hahn drops that jazzercise pose. But notice, during these pauses, the babies have stopped crying. The moment Wanda and Agnes go back into character is when the crying resumes.
Let's let Agnes give it a try.
Oh, I hate this. That tells us that their crying was part of the scripted sitcom scenario. And when Vision broke the flow of that, the babies had no reason to cry anymore. So Wanda, taking direction from Agatha, is cueing her babies to cry, depriving herself and her husband of sleep. What does that tell you? Also, by the way, this brings up one of the creepier sides of Hollywood when it comes to baby actors. Up through the 80s, in order to get babies to cry on camera, they would scare them with guys on set wearing monster masks, or offer the babies treats, but then eat the treats in front of them. And it's hard to find reports admitting to it, but yeah, they probably also pinch the babies. Nowadays, a common technique is for the baby handler to pretend to cry themselves, and the baby will follow suit, which is also kind of messed up if you ask me. But either way, this is what Wanda is doing to her babies. A performative cry, using her own tears, her own grief to cause these babies to cry just to follow this stupid scenario. But for her babies, it's real. They are mirroring her pain. These boys rapidly progress in age, which is another sitcom trope. Kids will often just age up suddenly between seasons or between episodes on sitcoms. And this is reflected in the growing pain style, rapid progression, the grow up so fast intro. And the song ends with, "Baby, we got WandaVision." Yeah, those 4 notes are worked into every era's theme song. Taking care of yourself is important, so good thing Geology makes it easy to do. Geology is a 16-time award-winning personalized skincare company recognized in Hypebeast, Birdie, Men's Health, Esquire, and Ask Men grooming awards with over 6,000 5-star reviews. Just take a quick 30-second diagnostic quiz and Geology will create a simple and effective skincare or hair care routine customized just for you, with ingredients that are dermatologist tested, proven to work, and personalized to your needs. For skincare, Geology's got strengthening shampoo and conditioner and co-wash, which will transform your routine and deliver the best hair of your life. It extends the time between washes and replaces the need for so many products, so you wash your hair less and save money more. They also offer body washes and deodorants that are free of harsh ingredients and smell great. For skincare, they have you covered from all angles. You can fight acne, reduce oilness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark or puffy under eyes, have smoother hydrated skin, and target signs of aging. Their daily personalized skincare routine comes with 2 face washes, a morning face cream, a retinol night cream, and eye cream. And right now, for a limited time, you can get a 5-piece trial set for only $15 if you use code Rockstars70 at checkout. That's over $50 of product for just $15. On top of that, you'll get an additional bonus offer on one of their brand new skin, hair, and body products of your choice when you add it to your trial. To get started, just click the link in the description. Now, I love how they use real photos of young Lizzie Olsen. They actually photoshopped a Sokovian flag behind her when she was a toddler, and they placed teenage Lizzie Olsen over a war-stricken Sokovian alley. Meanwhile, the progressive photos of Vision and holiday-themed costumes show him getting progressively more and more frustrated and not wanting to play along with this, as Vision finally hits his breaking point this episode. Outside, Monica recalls what Wanda's hex felt like.
There was this feeling keeping me down, this hopeless feeling, like drowning. It was grief.
Ah, Monica identifies the true culprit here. It was not Wanda alone, it was Wanda's grief. Vision's newspaper now includes text at the top, more dramatic details about the lights in the sky above Westview. These lights likely refer to the repeated drones that S.W.O.R.D keeps sending in, and as we saw in the movie The Truman Show, the local media of this town is part of the conspiracy to acknowledge these glitches in the Matrix with some cover story that one could dismiss easily. At work, Vision awakens Norm/Abalash.
Please help me. What day is it? How long has it been? Where's my phone? I have to call my sister.
No.
She's taking care of her dad. He's sick. You have to stop her.
Stop who?
She's in my head. None of it is my own. It hurts. It hurts so much. Just make her stop.
Oh, poor Abalash, he says it hurts so much. He feels Wanda's grief as his own. And since he mentioned having a sick father, that grief mixes with Abalash's own personal grief. Notice how Wanda herself is the one who let Sparky out of the house when she goes to confront the drone. She's the one that dooms this poor dog to his death. Outside, Wanda returns the drone.
This will be your only warning.
Again, her Sokovian accent returns, and notice how this is the only scene in the WandaVision series where Wanda actually wears her Avengers outfit, the trench coat, the boots, the laced up blouse. When she entered the Hex, she was wearing more casual wear, so here Wanda chooses to suit up to the look that she thinks would be most intimidating to these S.W.O.R.D agents. Wanda tells her kids,
Don't what? Don't age yourselves up. The urge to run from this feeling is powerful.
Yeah, Wanda's totally creating a double standard for these boys. She is running from her own problems, and they call her out.
We can't reverse death, no matter how sad it makes us. Okay, some things are forever.
You said family is forever.
He is family.
Yeah, again, this episode is called On a Very Special Episode, and normally episodes of Full House would end with parents giving the kids a wholesome life lesson set to heartful music like this, but here, the life lesson doesn't land because Wanda is so full of shit. So Wanda and Vision argue throughout the credits, Vision now refusing to let an episode end without confronting Wanda. Like that really creepy Adult Swim short, Too Many Cooks? Vision observes that there are no children in Westview, but Wanda says,
Tell me
Do
why.
you really think that I am controlling everything? That I am somehow in charge of everybody in Westview? I don't know how any of this started in the first place.
and when we watch this back, I believe Wanda here. I think she knows that she wanted a life and a home with Vision, but the creation of the Hex was not her conscious active choice, but rather it was her grief hijacking her powers. And here it is, Evan Peters, Pietro, arrives as the cool Uncle Jesse figure, which we now know was a meta gag by the producers, a parody of the Aunt Viv recasting, Becky and Roseanne, etc., using a Pietro actor from an alternate franchise. In retrospect, probably a misfire of audience expectation management, because they never intended this to be an X-Men Quicksilver in the MCU, but ultimately, since sitcom cliffhangers, recastings, stunt castings often do leave us unfulfilled like that, this disappointment was at least on brand for the way Wanda's grief is using the sitcom experience to torture us. Now, when I broke this down before, I spotted what looked like a gray arm reflected in the mirror reaching out from Wanda to Pietro as he walks in. To this day, I still don't know what this is. I can't explain it. There's nothing physically on the set between the actors that should create this reflection. I don't think it's the crew person because the camera is behind Evan Peters. I don't think it's a boom microphone because they would have mic'd the actors from above on a sitcom set like this. In post-production, mirrors are often touched up with VFX. This might have been some artifact that was left in the shot. Ultimately, the biggest torment from WandaVision is the fact that this is such a tightly controlled sitcom set where every set decoration, every prop choice, everything is a reflection of Wanda's sitcom-themed Hex. And so, every smudge we see in frame matters, or at least feels like it should. We're being driven crazy and paranoid, just like all the residents of Westview. We're also trapped in it. This is a series designed to make us see ghosts where there may not be. And isn't that what all ghosts are? That haunting continues in episode 6, All New Halloween Spooktacular. This Malcolm in the Middle style sitcom opening features punk rock vocals from Kristen Anderson Lopez teaming up with singer Kathleen Hanna from El Tigre.
Let's keep it going till each day, so today.
Yeah, I never noticed this before, but one of them totally chuckle on that lyric, but they kept it in because in this episode, Wanda's Hex illusion is really falling apart as we see these NPCs on the edge of town have begun to freeze in place. Agnes's sweatpants include the word naughty and rhinestones, and notice she does not join the family outside. She's actually last shown in the kitchen trying to do what? Grab the boys. Now, when the boys discuss being afraid to wake up Uncle P, we see Uncle P watching them in the foreground in a shot that uses split focus. This is when the foreground and background are both weirdly in focus at the same time. This is often used to show untrustworthy characters eavesdropping on characters in another part of the room. But Pietro scares them. Yeah, what a weird random phrase to yell. It's probably because it is scripted for him by Agatha. As we see in the episode 7 ending, Agatha is puppeting Ralph from the front yard, posing Ralph as Pietro to further feed Wanda's grief over her dead brother, an attempt by Agatha to create a conflict between the paternal figures in the household to neutralize Vision and isolate Wanda and the boys. Pietro/Agatha even states this objective later.
I'm just trying to do my part, okay? Come to town unexpectedly, create tension with the brother-in-law, stir up trouble with the Rugrats, and ultimately give you grief.
Ah, there's that word again, grief. Agatha, Pietro, Wanda, all part of a pipeline from the source, grief. You can actually see the natural tension between the papas as Pietro offers to fill in.
Uncle P to the rescue, huh?
There you go. Problem solved.
Yeah, that playful punch from Papa Vision stung. While trick-or-treating, Pietro yells,
"Unleash hell, demon spawn!"
Yes, our biggest red herring, perhaps, that this series was gonna do the Billy and Tommy are pieces of Mephisto's soul arc from the comics. While not confirmed in the series to be Mephisto-linked, they are certainly manifestations of Wanda's grief. And another way we could look at them is that they are Wanda's love persevering. As Wanda chats with her, the house behind her has been decorated as Macabre Manor, with 2 hook-nosed masked figures out front, but these aren't dummies because there is a pair of human legs underneath. So we're spending the scene waiting for these things to pop out and scare us. In nearly every scene, creepy static faces are surrounding Wanda, and the freezing residents of the town become, essentially, Halloween decorations. Vision sees a couple stuck on a loop like NPCs, but a tear rolls down the wife's cheek because she is not allowed to blink. But they actually shot this couple on a split screen. They timed them so that they would be awkwardly out of sync. You can see the dividing line in the middle of the frame, but they still VFX'd in a moving shadow of the husband to make it seem like it was all part of one shot. The finished effect of all this is an incredibly unnatural feeling as we're looking at this. I just love they did this. They put all this work into just making us feel a little uncomfortable. In the creepy Yo Magic Yogurt commercial, as the boy rots, he lets out a death wheeze if you listen closely. Which means they made a child actor do that into a microphone. You'll notice beside that kid on the island is a fish that he had eaten. Fish was also the treat they got during the Sokovian Halloween and Wanda's threat to Pietro.
If I see any funny business, I am going to magic you into a pickled herring.
Now, episode 7 reveals Agatha's roadside moment with Vision is all an act. Like the moment Vision turns away to look around, Agatha is regaining her composure, which makes it interesting what she actually says here.
No one leaves. Wanda won't even let us think about it.
All is lost.
So Agatha is really the one who plants this caged bird paranoia in Vision's mind. You can see she started with that moment with Herb in episode 3, maybe even the moment she waved her hand at him in episode 1. This is all part of her plot to distance Vision from Wanda and to make Wanda vulnerable to her own grief. Pietro, puppeted by Agatha, prods Wanda on how she's doing this.
I only remember feeling completely alone. Empty. Just endless nothingness.
So Wanda isn't consciously aware of how she spawned her hex, but what she's describing is grief, which for Agatha to be curious about it must be a third-party entity in this equation. But grief presents himself here in the form of dead Pietro. Even though Evan Peters' Ralph Boner Pietro isn't the one who got shot by Ultron in Sokovia, Grief's ears are burning when Wanda starts to unravel here, and he cannot help himself. He has to take this opportunity to terrorize her. Wanda expands the hex to reclaim Vision and catches Darcy. Yeah, I love how they show her transition by TV censoring her F-bomb. The S.W.O.R.D camp becomes a circus, and one mime wipes an invisible wall as she is now trapped within a barrier. We end on Wanda's eyes as the red glow disappears, and you'll notice the right eye has a shadow in it. Now looking back, we know what it is. It is the moment in the Hydra lab when the Mind Stone showed Wanda her future self as the Scarlet Witch as a shadow. In her eye, right in this moment, is the Nexus being who transcends time and space and reality, the goddess within. And then on to the amazing episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall, an episode that uses Modern Family style talking head interview segments and an intro sequence based on that of happy endings, and then one with terrifying kidnapper letters, "I know what you are doing, Wanda." Yeah, this is pretty scary. But now that we know that Agatha is in the director's chair, I think this is Agatha interfering with Wanda, sending her these death threats, getting a rise out of her like Stanley Kubrick did to Shelley Duvall instead of The Shining, all to get a traumatized performance that will keep Wanda in that confession camp for as long as possible. That houseplant that Agatha gifted Wanda all the way back in episode 1 now glitches into a tree, but the fact that that plant hadn't yet updated with the times shows how Agatha's power can resist Wanda's sorcery to a certain extent. Because Agatha has more experience and more control over her sorcery, Wanda's still relatively new to it. This power struggle is conveyed in a really unsettling violation this episode.
I can't fix it.
Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?
What? You're not supposed to talk.
Again, this is Agatha in the director chair, but the voice is actually Catherine Hahn's voice with the pitch lowered.
Do you think maybe this is what you deserve? Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?
In the moment Wanda senses Agatha, we abruptly cut to the antidepressant commercial, which confirms to us that while the comforting sitcoms are coming from Wanda, the triggering invasive commercials are interruptions by Agatha and Wanda's grief, which smartly parallels the relationship between sitcoms and advertising, one trying to provide wholesome escapism, the other a more deceptive exploitative force embedding itself among that narrative. Yet both, when you think about it, need each other to survive. In this case, Nexus is Agatha goading Wanda to access her status as a Nexus being, a power status in Marvel Comics, meaning you can transcend the multiverse. Wanda actually does this via dreamwalking in Multiverse of Madness, and you'll notice here the pharmacy is lit with a red glow, the color of Wanda's hex and her dreamwalking sorcery. Billy tells Agatha,
"You're quiet, Agnes. On the inside."
Billy, as a telepath, is unable to read Agatha's thoughts, and when she is called out, Agatha freezes. Her hand is just over the rabbit. Why? Because Senor Scratchy is her familiar, planned in this series to be a demon in disguise. In this moment, Agatha was considering whether to activate this rabbit. Now, there's kind of a crazy detail in the B-plot of this episode. This moment when the S.W.O.R.D technicians behind Monica are using laptops, notice the logos are removed, but later in the shot with Jimmy Woo, we now see the laptops have HP logos on the back, and those technicians are different actors. actors. They reshot parts of this scene. Why did they do this? Well, notice in the close-ups of the laptops, they are Panasonic Toughbooks. And then at the end of the scene, we see the technicians are back to working on logo-less laptops that don't even look like real computers, and they're back to being the original actors. So this was likely a product placement that was secured later during the production, and they had to reshoot parts of the scene, and they had to get different actors. But they accidentally left in some shots. So even by accident, this series works on a meta level. Like in Westview, sometimes glitches just make their way in. We thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. In Agatha's house, Wanda sees a cicada on the curtains, just like Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs, seeing that moth that alerted her that she is actually in a maison de mépris with its own hell basement. Like a moth to the flame herself, Wanda descends past the roots, and the aspect ratio changes to signal that Wanda is in Agatha's hex-proof zone now. And we finally see the Darkhold. Its cover has these two stacked heads with curved horns depicting Chthon from the comics. This is the demon who was cited in Multiverse of Madness, the one who cursed Wanda as a baby. But I always wondered, why do we see two? Why this design exactly? Well, here among the literal roots, we arrive at the root myth of WandaVision. This is not a simple superhero story or even a rom-com. This is truly the story of a witch being gaslit by a television-based curse and corrupted by an unholy alliance. Because folks, all torment is the friction of two evils, an outer demon trying to get in and an inner demon trying to get out. Friction. One demon from above, one demon from below. The song says it was Agatha all along, but this hex overall was not Agatha's doing alone, but truly a partnership. Agatha is the outer evil trying to bore into Wanda's soul, but there is also an inner demon, and that inner demon's name is Grief. Grief is using Wanda as a conduit to spread outward and infect everyone it can. Grief is truly a universal demon that you could say has many names, and it's an evil that Agatha knows well, but not on the level Wanda does. You may have noticed that Agatha's brooch has been missing this episode, yet she wears it here. And she takes us through her evil deed set to the Munsters-inspired Agatha all along. It's truly just a wonderful moment in MCU storytelling, and I think the best needle drop we've ever gotten in the MCU. Yet, I didn't notice this before, but when Agatha is sitting behind the camera in the director's chair, look at Wanda out of focus in the background. She suddenly looks up at the boom mic. I love this so much, because whenever babies are in movies or TV shows, look at them closely, because they always do this. They will inevitably look up out of frame because they're looking at the freaking fuzzy boom mic over their heads, or they're looking at the lights, or they're looking at the camera equipment. And babies are right. All this stuff is weird and invasive and should not be in the room with us. This even includes Lizzie Olsen's older sisters on Full House. Every time when Michelle started to look off camera, notice the adult abruptly turned her away. Similarly, Agatha is gaslighting this child actor with the ultimate televised infantilization. Episode 8, previously on, opens in 1693 Salem, Massachusetts, a witch trial, but not a trial of witches, a trial by witches, a true coven of chaos. They did a bit of de-aging on Catherine Hahn for this scene, giving her an unnatural beauty and the sense of vanity of someone who has been making deals with devils. Actually, later when Wanda brings her back here in episode 9, Wanda doesn't de-age her then. Cold-hearted witch. The coven chants,
Wait.
which is Latin for death to the freak of nature. Agatha defends that she didn't break Evanora's rules, they simply bent to her power. And when the witches try to drain her life force, it seems almost unconscious that her purple sorcery takes over and drains them instead. Because Agatha, too, has a union with Grief, but a union that formed when she was too young to know it fully. And at this young age, she never experienced grief thereafter. That's the key difference between her and Wanda. Wanda had several waves of grief throughout her life. So in this episode, Agatha takes Wanda on a memory tour through those waves of grief, which takes the form of these impossible doors throughout the architecture of Agatha's basement, making her house a literal haunted house, one coated by Wanda's plucked hair, like the way the Greek fates would use a string to represent a mortal's destiny and timeline. In the flashback, Wanda's mother Irina says,
"Don't look."
So that Sokovian greeting that they brought up in episode 1 was real.
Guess who?
Oh, is that my host behind me?
It certainly is.
So this first memory is the root of Wanda's trauma, framed in an emotional bond with American sitcoms, which taught Wanda English, bonded her with her family, and gave her an escape from the conflict outside. Notice how even after her parents are killed, from this girl's point of view, that Dick Van Dyke Walnut episode continues to play, showing her how sitcoms are so powerful they can withstand freaking bombs. Then onto the Hydra Lab, where the Mind Stone chooses Wanda in this scene, paralleling the way Agatha says she didn't mean to break the rules, they just bent to her power. Here, the Mind Stone bends to Wanda's power. And I like how the Hydra security feed jump cuts to after the power up, the first instance of Wanda warping a TV feed to shut out observers, as she will go on to do with S.W.O.R.D. The Brady Bunch episode switches off, revealing Agatha and Wanda in the background, its own little jump scare, much like that moment in Signs when the alien is revealed to be in the TV reflection. Then Wanda and Vision have their heart-to-heart about grief, leading to the beautiful stated theme of this entire series and of the entire phase, in my opinion.
But what is grief? If not love, persevering.
Now, we've talked about this being a story about a witch being corrupted by her grief, but this line leaves this witch with an inner angel to combat that demon. Really, the way out from grief is just a shifted outlook where you can redefine what grief is. But not talked about enough is Wanda's line that comes before that.
It's just like this wave washing over me again and again. It knocks me down, and when I try to stand up, it just comes for me again.
Wanda is right, it never really leaves you. That's why I don't think it was bad writing to have Wanda begin Multiverse of Madness having slid back into grief. That's what grief does to us. And if Vision's wisdom here was this series' final answer to the question, Wanda would have just been able to take this to heart back in 2015 and would have grieved Vision's death healthily. Clearly, she did not. Because folks, when you're drowning, just because you can see a lifesaver doesn't make fighting against those waves any easier. I really think the people who had those biggest gripes with WandaVision maybe haven't had enough of an experience with depression themselves. Now, back in Avengers Infinity War, Wanda and Vision had told each other,
I just feel you.
You could never hurt me. I just feel you.
But now when Wanda stands over his corpse in S.W.O.R.D, Wanda whispers, and we see how Vision's note on the property deed that he had bought for Wanda is outlined in a heart, just like the date on the calendar in episode 1. That was really the heart that they couldn't remember. When Wanda constructs the house with chaos magic, I like how the interior is already in black and white in the shot even before she warps the rest of the town. And as Wanda finishes, Vision is first shown behind her, reflected in the TV, as the Mind Stone is the last part of him to manifest, because this is all framed in Wanda's TV obsession. Agatha ends the episode by saying,
You have no idea how dangerous you are. You're supposed to be a myth, a being capable of spontaneous creation. This is chaos magic, Wanda. And that makes you the Scarlet Witch.
interesting here. One could see Agatha as the true protagonist of the story. If you think about it, both of these witches lie to a lot of people, but Agatha hurts far fewer innocent people, and as a protagonist, structurally, she makes more active moves in pursuit of her goal. Now, yeah, Agatha does threaten kids here, but so does Ripley when she torches the Xenomorph Queen's babies in front of her. We can get down with a badass lady doing stuff like this. In the grand scheme of things, Agatha in this series nearly saved a lot of Sorcerer and a lot of Illuminati lives. Either way, she certainly earned her Coven of Chaos spinoff. And then on to episode 9, this series finale. Agatha's fingertips are black, a trait that Wanda will have in Multiverse of Madness, a stain from using the Darkhold. And if you think about it, when someone scribbles in ink a lot, their hand will get stained by that ink. We saw this with the character Jo in Little Women, and this always happens to me whenever I take notes during movies because, in a movie theater I can't see where I'm writing. Similarly, Agatha and Wanda are flipping through the living ink of the Darkhold pages, and therefore their fingers get stained like this. Agatha reads from the Darkhold.
The Scarlet Witch is not born, she is forged. She has no coven, no need for incantation. It's your destiny to destroy the world.
And I like how in that illustration, the face of the Scarlet Witch is pure darkness, because when Wanda will rise into that status, she will be wearing the face of grief. Avalash tells Wanda,
"You let us sleep. We have your nightmares."
Now remember, Multiverse of Madness will introduce the concept of dream walking. When one dreams, they are living the lives of their multiversal selves. So here, since Wanda possesses these people, they too dreamwalk into Wanda's alternate lives. Vision disarms White Vision with the ship of Theseus.
Over time, its planks of wood rot and are replaced with new planks. When no original plank remains, is it still the ship of Theseus? Secondly, if those removed planks are restored and reassembled free of the rot, is that the ship of Theseus?
Now, of course, it's a metaphor for which is the true vision, but I think we overlooked how this also totally applies to Wanda. What defines something? Its parts or its rot? Its original condition or the way life has scarred it? If Wanda's grief is rotting part of her, is it really the same Wanda on the other side of that rot? Well, yes, absolutely it is. Our grief may be an inextricable rot within us, but it does not define who we are. Throughout this finale, Agatha wants Wanda to hit her because it is how Agatha can absorb Wanda's power. Such is the nature of grief and all toxic feelings. The more attention you give it, the more powerful it becomes. The trick isn't pummeling the grief, it's transforming the grief. And so Wanda is able to defeat Agatha by setting her own runic barrier, setting the terms of her own grief, and using that to evolve herself into her Scarlet Witch form. But this Scarlet Witch is not a gracious victor. She mentally imprisons Agatha.
No, please.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. You're cruel. You have no idea what you've unleashed.
And I just noticed the little smirk Wanda makes when Agatha calls her cruel. She's proud of it. Does it not feel like the bad guy really won this? The two say goodbye.
I'll be seeing you, Agnes.
Not if I see you first, hon.
Yeah, a bit of a veiled threat there. And a little detail here, while Agatha remains in the background as Wanda approaches the family, seconds later when we cut back to Wanda, you can no longer see Agatha's foot behind Wanda. Agatha has suddenly vanished. How? Well, she is still wearing her brooch, one part of her wardrobe that never changed as she remains semi-sentient. At the end of the day, it remains to be seen what Agatha's connection with grief looks like exactly. And actually, there are rumors of Mephisto actor Sacha Baron Cohen having shot scenes for Coven of Chaos. So who knows, maybe Agatha secretly had a broken marriage with her own demon, one that left her with some grief, or should we say, love persevering. Wanda tells Vision,
You are my sadness. And my hope. But mostly you're my love.
Mostly you're my love. So Vision therefore will be Wanda's love persevering, and Wanda is telling Vision that she will grieve him, but Vision will always live on as her inner angel. As this angel fades out of her hands, Wanda goes from having her wedding band cut to an empty finger, meaning that band was the last thing she erased. Now in these final minutes, director Matt Shakman actually snuck in a VFX recomposition of Elizabeth Olsen's face with a new line that was added later. Like, notice her face changes and the audio is cleaner.
I'm sorry. For all the pain I caused. I don't understand this power, but I will. Goodbye, Monica.
This line was added to give Wanda a task. Her task before her is now to seclude herself in the mountains and use the Darkhold to seek a reality that has her sons in it. Now, even after Multiverse of Madness, we never really learned what Billy and Tommy screaming was all about. Because the only time in Multiverse of Madness we see these boys actually in distress is, well, because of Wanda.
Mommy! Wait! Get away from me! Mommy! Get away from her, Mom! Stop it!
Stop it! The same words Mrs. Hart snapped at Wanda in episode 1. Actually, Elizabeth Olsen later confessed the truth behind this moment on set.
They were throwing things at me in the scene and accidentally smacked my face really hard. And that was the best reaction. And I felt so bad that I used it as the actor and let it inform how I responded to these people that I love, because they were terrified after. And it really, that was something I did not enjoy at all, but I knew it'd be good for the scene.
Oof, so there you have it, like Wanda using her raw emotions to cause the boys distress in episode 5 so they never stop crying. The actress Olsen herself scarred these young actors on set, sparking a fear that may have echoed back through the multiverse to Wanda in the cabin. But really, truly, what Wanda is hearing in this moment is her own grief. WandaVision was the first story of Marvel Phase 4, a phase that ended up being linked thematically by the concept of grief and how grief can drive us to some dark places. To see Killmonger in the ancestral plane, to vengefully kill a man, or to relentlessly open a gate that will release a demon into this realm. But Thor Love and Thunder revealed that love isn't just an abstract concept in the MCU, it's a sentient entity. Therefore, so too must be love's opposite, grief. Now, grief also has taken many forms. Chthon, the ghost of Killmonger, and soon we will see Mephisto. Grief is a shadow that waits for us always, a wave that promises to return to drag us under at the worst possible moment. And so WandaVision is not a story that fully heals the character of Wanda Maximoff. It's a tragedy that proves how vicious grief can be. Yet, while WandaVision successfully corrupts this witch into a villain, it also leaves us with a tool to escape from grief, an answer that for Wanda can only come from herself. Grief can only survive if we feed it. So instead of fighting grief, remember that grief is just our own love persevering. So now that we're truly ready for Coven of Chaos, what title should we deep dive into next? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe to the deep dive. You can also follow us at Deep Dive NR on all social media, but also be sure to stay subscribed to the new Rockstars main channel, because I'm sure you noticed there were plenty of Easter eggs I did not cover in this video. And that's the kind of fun stuff that I'm gonna keep doing on the main channel, while here I go into the deeper analysis and hidden agendas of the creators. Thank you so much for watching, and for our next deep dive, to the Darkhold!
Boss! Boss! Help!